So yesterday I did a Q&A video, and I had a few people inquire as to my feelings in regard to the whole Favela getting taken down debacle, and I didn't actually know what was going on yesterday when I made that video, and it wasn't until today that I was stumbling around the internet and I discovered that the actual reason that Favela was taken down in Modern Warfare 2 was because of a litany and a bunch of Muslims who were sending messages, some of which I'm pretty sure were threats of boycotting the next Call of Duty Black Ops 2 if they did not take this offensive part out of Favela. And for me, I was blown away. I had no idea. I even looked for my Modern Warfare 2 disc so I could sign in and try and see it. I didn't know. I figured I could still do it offline. So I figured this was something super offensive. I figured maybe somebody hacked into the game and put a picture of Muhammad, or I don't know, it would be particularly offensive to Muslims because I'm not a Muslim. So I imagined it was going to be something big, like somebody messed with the game because it's so old, and I wouldn't put it past people to do something that, just trying to get under another group's skin just for the sake of it. But then I looked more into it, and it turns out that they're offended by something that's been in the game since the game's inception. Since the game first released, this has been in the game. And so clearly it's not some assault on Muslim heritage or culture or anything if it's so tiny and insignificant that nobody really got offended or noticed until now. Clearly if it was an attack or an intentional attack on your heritage and culture, they would have been more overt. Now, what this is in the bathroom that they're offended by is 2 picture frames, and the picture frames themselves, there's nothing in the pictures, but the picture frames have an inscription along it that reads something complimentary towards Muhammad, and then something else complimentary, I think, about love and Allah or something. Point being, they are not insulting things about Muhammad and Allah. They're not trying to get under someone's skin with those. It was just, I imagine that it was probably a programmer who spoke the language and thought, hey, you know what? I could put whatever I want around this border, but I'm going to put something in a language that I bet nobody in the Western world is going to see. That's a cool little Easter egg. I bet that's what he was thinking. And as far as I know, the Muslims who are very irritated right now at this, they're not even offended by what this inscription says. Could be wrong there, can't possibly speak on behalf of everyone who's complaining, but I'm pretty sure the biggest reason that they are offended is because these are located in the bathroom, and apparently it is incredibly offensive to talk about Muhammad or Allah or anything pertaining to Islam. I could be wrong in this again, but my understanding is that it's offensive to talk about those things in the bathroom. Now, that's the context. Now that everything's set up for you. Sorry if you already knew all this. Now, as a little bit of commentary on this whole situation, imagine for a moment with me that a group of extreme right-wing, crazy Christian, Tea Party fundamentalists decided that the map terminal in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was so offensive to the memories of the victims of 9/11 that it had to be removed, and that they all started sending messages and just hitting Activision with so many, we're going to boycott it, we're not going to buy our kids this for Christmas, blah, 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 all that stuff. Who honestly thinks that Activision would have thought, oh man, we better take this map down, No, there's no way. There's no way they would have taken that map down. And similarly, imagine if a group of Russians, let's say all these Russians got together, this federation of Russian gamers, and they're like, you know what, this is ridiculous. It's about time we stop being the bad guys in all these video games. We're always the bad guys. That's ridiculous. We need to send a bunch of messages to Activision and tell them how, unless they stop making Russians the bad guys, we want Russians to be the good guys. That's what we want. If Russians aren't the protagonists of the next game, then we're boycotting. Nobody would, adhere to those situations, or, more similarly, if the Russians said, remove these Russian, WMD maps because that's offensive or something like that, because we're not a warlike people and that's insulting to our heritage and all that. The point is that anyone can make any claim that something is offensive to them, but the difference is the only groups that are really listened to and paid attention to like this and immediately get retribution, or not retribution, but they get action taken on their behalf, are Muslims. And you know who should be offended by this? Muslims. If you are a Muslim watching this, if you are a moderate Muslim who is not, angry about this, I say, are the person who should be offended. Because what does it say about Muslims, about how people perceive Islam? Those people, even though the things they're receiving are just people saying, for the most part, we're not going to buy this game unless you change things, the fact that they're just scared as a whole that someone is going to do something just out of whack and hurt them, and they're so afraid of that, and that they comply and they deal with that and they just do whatever you want because of it. You should be insulted by that. You should be insulted. I've had friends tell me that Islam is the religion of peace. If it is the religion of peace, then you, as someone who is, reasonable, should be saying, hey, you know what? I'm standing up as a Muslim right now and saying, don't remove that map, don't treat me special, don't condescend to me and be like, okay, you religious person, we'll just do whatever you want because we don't trust you to be rational. Don't condescend me like that, treat me like everybody else. That's what you should be saying. Or, if you really care and you want Muslims to be perceived better in the world, that's what you should be saying. And understandably, I'm not a Muslim, so I can't possibly understand the level of how offensive something like this is. I can't imagine that it's that offensive, since it seems like somebody would have brought this up by now. It seems like somebody would have had to have seen that inscription and complained about it if it were that uber offensive. But just for that reason, you should, as a Muslim, if you are a moderate Muslim and you're not offended by this, you need to, stand up. Say, no, don't treat me special. Treat me like everybody else. Just because I'm a Muslim doesn't mean you have to treat me differently. That's what you should be doing if you're trying to initiate a positive change and a positive cultural perception of Muslims. And by no means am I saying that even all the Muslims who are offended by this are bad people. I don't think that you're crazy extremists or anything. I don't think that any of them would actually hurt someone, or I hope not. But the thing is that the people at Activision, if they did do this because they were fearful of anything happening, they did it just because the thought is in their head. The best way to fight these thoughts and ideologies of that subtle racism, or I guess, religionism or whatever, is to start changing the cultural perception of that group, which you as moderate Muslims could do right now. You could take a stand, say, don't treat me specially. So I guess that is the main argument against it as far as I'm concerned. But additionally, you just have to ask, what gives you the right to impose your morality on me? Why do you get to decide the content of a video game? Who are you to dictate that to me? What makes your moral judgment so much more special than mine? What makes you, privileged enough to tell me what I can and can't play? Because at a certain level, it is just selfishness what you did by complaining about this game. Think about it. I don't even play Modern Warfare 2, and I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend like I'm devastated by the loss to Favela, because I'm not. But I will tell you that Favela is my favorite, or one of my favorite maps on Modern Warfare 2. So, if I ever did want to play Favela again for whatever reason, I can't do it because you deprived me of that. You will no longer allow me to do something just because it offended you. Now, I don't know about you, or I do know about you because you're doing it, but that's offensive to me. That's offensive to me. Now, because that's offensive to me, does that mean I get to tell you how to live your life? No. So at that point, it should just be a stalemate. The point is that just because you're offended by a form of art, which I guess we're using that loosely right now, talking about Call of Duty, but you shouldn't be able to just reach in and tweak what you want based on your own moral compass. That's just not okay. So that's all I have to say about this situation right now. If you have any, scalding refutations or anything like that, feel free to post them in the comment section below, or, anything you want, feel free to contribute. Hopefully this video will get a good amount of discussion. So, that's it, and goodbye.